Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Hello again, everybody. This is Rob Godlewski with the Think Small podcast. And today, our special guest is Jeff Loether. And Jeff is the founder and president of Electro Media Design. Jeff, it's so great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you. It's great being here. What an opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that. We're going to have a great conversation. You have a very interesting business. So let's dig in and talk about the business. How did you get this business started? I could see that you founded the business in 1990. So as a founder and business leader, you've seen it all. So let's dig in.
Yeah. So Electro Media Design is an audio-visual design consultants. We're independent design consultants. That means that we don't represent any manufacturers or sell any equipment or anything like that. We act like architects to the technology that we design. And we've been doing it. I was working in Marriott's architecture and construction division for 10 years from 1980 to 1990 before starting this.
Mm.
And that's kind of how we got started. We actually got started in a bit of a recession because the Gulf War was happening back then in 1990. And the
Sure.
economy was contracting, but it just happened that this was the time for me to hang out my shingle. So it's growing. It's been growing ever since. We've a lot of the people that I worked with when I was with Marriott ended up in other hotel companies all over the world, and I was the only one they knew that was hotel-oriented audiovisual and acoustics design. So they were ringing my phone, and we've grown. I guess we're now on project 1,360 something since
Oh my goodness.
1990, and we're very active all over the world. I don't remember how many countries we have projects that we've been engaged for, but it's in the 60, 70 countries range, something.
Wow. So if I can paraphrase your statement there, most of your growth and your outbound marketing really was inbound, and it came from personal referrals and word of mouth, correct?
Absolutely true. We used to kid when asked by business consultants, how do you market something so nichey as that? And I said, well, our marketing plan is to answer the phone when it rings and be really helpful to whoever called. And if they ask us for a proposal, we keep our pencil sharp and then we do a great job. And that's exactly true. We didn't realize it until we looked back over 1,000 projects and realized that 98% was repeat business from clients that we've done work with before, and test and referrals from those clients to new clients. But it's an interesting challenge because you wonder, well, how can I know what if marketing is effective? I go to a trade show, if I do an outbound campaign, and the phone just keeps ringing, and they're familiar voices.
Sure.
It's interesting.
Well, you must do an amazing, valuable work for your clients and customers because doing this since 1990, those people who were referring you back then probably aren't still in their jobs. They're retiring out, right? They're aging out of their jobs. So kudos to you for keeping up that line of referrals flowing. That's great.
That is a very interesting, and it's challenging. You're absolutely right. And COVID had a pretty big impact because COVID created the opportunity for a lot of people to reconsider their employment arrangements. And so, yeah, you're right. A lot of the people who had us on speed dial or in their Rolodex, they packed up
Sure.
the box and went home, and new people came in whenever as the cycle turned in those organizations who did not necessarily know us. So one of the things that we're doing in order to refamiliarize ourselves or refamiliarize the market with us, but we're doing workshops and seminars and writing a lot more. It's shifted from in person to digital, and so we're beginning to learn how to do that. And we've engaged a digital marketing advisor on a part-time basis who's generating the outbound and the content for us and helping us understand how funnels work, the incoming funnel.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, that was you're absolutely right. It was interesting to see that change. People that we used to be talking with are no longer there.
Right. So tell us about I'm clearly COVID had a major impact on the hospitality industry. I've talked to lots of CEOs about how they navigated their business through COVID, and for some companies, it was a boon. It was a major uptick in revenue and growth. But clearly for the hospitality industry, it was crushing. So tell us about how you navigated the business through that period, not only from a operations standpoint, but also from the human standpoint. How were you able to maintain your employee base?
Well, interestingly, because the world of architecture and design and development has been in the virtual, operating virtually forever, for decades.
Hmm.
If you're going to design a building or a hotel, you don't have the interior designer and the architect and the lighting consultant and the electrical and mechanical consultant all in the same city, so we can all get together for lunch and have meetings. The professionals that are doing these are spread all over the country, sometimes in other countries as well. So
And
we
they
were
have been for
used to,
decades.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
we're used to operating on virtual teams. When COVID hit, the shift that a couple things happened. One is we didn't notice until 2021, mid 2021, 22. And the reason that our team didn't notice it was because we had several large projects that we were working on already. There were domestic hotels, big hotels in the United States that had started back in 2017, 2018, the design process. And those design roles on big hotels, that can go on for 2 or 3 years. So we were rolling through and the design didn't stop, and 2020 was a very busy year for us. What we
Hmm.
hadn't noticed was that the phone wasn't ringing that much anymore. So as we were tidying up and finishing those bigger projects in 2021 and 22, we said, well, what are we going to do next? But another thing kind of happened, interestingly. We had, back 10 years before that, been very busy over in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And we actually had a
Interesting.
desk over in a developer's office over there. So we were commuting every 6 weeks and spending a week to 10 days in Abu Dhabi working on projects with that developer as part of the Abu Dhabi government.
Okay.
And so we developed a reputation over there. And about the time when COVID had just started to bloom over in Saudi Arabia, they got new leadership. And the idea was, well, we've seen what can happen in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Let's now create destinations here in Saudi Arabia. So some major projects started over there, and I'm sure that you've heard about them and read about them. And because
Absolutely.
we already had a reputation with some of the top architecture and engineering firms in the Middle Eastern area, in cities like Lebanon and in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they reached out to us when they needed audiovisual and acoustics consulting. So as the domestic development sort of tapered off, our Middle Eastern activities picked up, and we've been very busy on many projects over there, and we are today. So and now domestic is picking back up again. So now the United States is back to having a robust development economy, and so it cycles. You go through cycles.
Right, right. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that your business is so closely connected to the hospitality industry, didn't really feel a negative impact during COVID as most hospitality related businesses do. So well done.
Well, we're a kind of a leading indicator also, because the business of running a hotel can't happen until after it's been designed and built. We're on the design and build
Correct. You're
side.
absolutely right.
But another thing that's happening domestically is that there was a lot of, what do you say? It's postponed upkeep and maintenance on properties when they went dark during COVID.
Mm,
There was a lot of deferred, I guess it's called deferred maintenance and renovation work and things like that wasn't being done. So now that the economy is back and hospitality is more robust, now they've got the cash flow to say, okay, it's time to renovate the ballrooms. Let's renovate the restaurant, and we get involved in those kind of projects because of audiovisual entertainment technologies, event technologies, acoustics. All that is critical to these facilities. and dealing with existing conditions that had been left, untouched for a couple of years, and then try to light it back up again. It's like, okay, we need to refresh it. Then we get called in.
Interesting. So Jeff, I'd like to kind of switch gears a little bit, and we had an earlier conversation about product innovation, and in your role with Electro Media Design, you work with a lot of product manufacturers, right, of the audio and the video equipment, and you're not contractually engaged with any equipment manufacturer, but over the years, you know what works well with each other, and I'm sure you have preferred brands and preferred models you like to use when implementing your designs into your customers' locations. But
Mhm.
there was a point when you realized, hey, there's a void here, and we think we have a better mousetrap. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, that actually happened a lot. Even when I was in Marriott's architecture group back in the 80s, I would come up with ideas and talk to manufacturers. It would be really great if you could have this connect to that and then do this when you do that. And products were suddenly developed by them and put on the market, and everybody was, hey, Jeff invented that thing. So it was kind of fun back then.
Sure.
But it was is more a problem solving thing. Once we created our own company, Electro Media Design, and we continued to have these ideas, we thought, well, this is invention, and we're doing independent consulting, so maybe we need to stand up a separate entity. So we created an LLC
Hmm.
called IdeaWorks, and it's just our own private invention development sandbox. And so various other additional products that we have thought up, we were able to patent and then license to manufacturers through IdeaWorks. And the products are not always physical, although some of them are. There's rigging systems that hang speakers and projection screens and trussing off of ceilings and lighting fixtures. There's a
Okay.
projection screen that we invented and patented that is 9 foot high, 16 foot wide, and appears to be suspended in midair with no means of support. It just like floats in midair. It's magic. Now
Wow.
we patented that and then licensed that to a screen manufacturer. But one of them is a software platform. Was we operating facilities who wanted to have support, wanted our support in how do we hire people, how do we create standard operating procedures, how do we take this wonderful technology that's in this facility that you designed, and then to make it productive and make it available and to provide services to our customers, whether that's the Patent and Trademark Office, it's all government employees who use it, or whether it's a Marriott or a Hyatt or a hotel that has a public space and they want to take care of meeting planners for big meetings.
Hmm.
So we knew how to support them in doing that, but we thought it would be even more efficient if we could create a SaaS platform. So one of the products that we created is actually a SaaS platform that is it's a virtual technology asset management platform. And once that became and had its own legs and got some lift, we spun that out of IdeaWorks and created a separate Delaware C company for them.
Okay.
And then there was the sound system that we'd been thinking about for a while. And it's instead of having speakers in the ceiling or speakers up on sticks and stands in the front of the stage blasting out the whole front of the audience, and we thought, what if we could distribute the microphones and speakers and put them in the middle of the tables so that you're close, you're only 4 feet away from a speaker and a microphone, and everybody can have a very even sound coverage throughout the entire audience and flexible. You put them at wherever the tables are, you put one in the middle of the table.
Hmm.
That we ended up being able to get 2 patents on and develop it. It's called Table Talker. We call it the Table Talker. Thought it was a
Table talker. I love it.
clever name, but we're really excited about that. Right now we are approaching production of what we call the beta prototype. So we'll be able to get those into some early adopters, some pilot users, and we've got several great clients ready to accept these and to test them in their own facilities, a corporate headquarters, a conference center at a university, rental company up in Chicago. So that's where we're at. We're about a month away from being able to put those into actual use. We've tested them. We're very, very happy with the performance of the system. But
Interesting.
there was a little twist in the development for that.
Okay, tell us about that.
We always imagined this appliance, this audio appliance that sits in the middle of the table. We always imagined that as being a wireless device.
Okay,
And
that makes a lot of sense.
so all the PRDs or product requirement documents that you write up all the features and functions and performance parameters that you want the product to do, and we
Hmm.
shop that amongst product engineering firms. And what we were getting back were quotes from them that, okay, yes, we understand what you want this thing to do and how it works. There's a unit up on the lectern that the presenter controls which ones turn on and off and who's speaking and the volume and all that. And then there's these things all over the tables but for us to design that ready for production is somewhere between $3 and $5 million.
Okay.
Well, $3 and $5 million. How the heck are we going to? I did not know how to raise that kind of money, and we had unfortunately, 3 experiences with individuals who said, "I'll raise the money for you. I can do that. Just here's my fee," and 3 times nothing happened.
Oh, that's
Just
unfortunate, Jeff.
and we didn't know how to evaluate, but now we know better. Now we know
Of
better.
course.
So we kind of put that on the back shelf, and then there's a big audiovisual conference that's held every year that's called Infocom, and in the spring of 2024, Infocom was announcing their show and said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to have a Trailblazers Pavilion. So if you have any new product idea that you'd like to have highlighted in the Trailblazers Pavilion, fill out this form and let us know about it." I thought, what the heck? If you don't try something new, you can't just sit and wait. Nothing happens there. Waiting's not a plan. So we filled out the form, and sure enough, we were accepted into that show. Well, all we could really show was the thing that goes on the lectern and the thing that goes on the table that's connected by wires, because that's how we did our prototype. We showed that acoustically it would work, but we didn't have the wireless technology down.
Sure. Your full intention was to have the end product be a wireless product.
We always imagined it was going to be wireless. Yeah.
Hmm.
Set up your tables, open up the foot locker, pull these things out, deal them out into the middle of each table, push a button, turn them all on, and they're away to go. But that was $3 million to $5 million away from us. And what we could do was to demonstrate this, and maybe would attract some investors, but we thought we could even deliver wireless if somebody wanted to pilot this. So the first day of the show, this happened 3 times. Directors of technology for university. Now we're in hospitality. We don't know that much about higher ed.
Okay.
These are
So previously
universities.
you weren't selling to any higher education
No,
locations.
we hadn't even considered them in our marketing research or anything, because we didn't
Interesting.
know that much about it. We live in the hospitality world.
Sure.
They came by and I demonstrated how it worked and explained how it worked. And they said, "This is great. This is so good," because it supports collaboration. It lets anybody. So I guess backtrack a little bit. If you imagine a room full of these tables with table talkers in the middle, somebody's up at the lectern, everybody hears what they're saying. At one of the tables, somebody has a question, they raise their hand or they touch the top of the table talker, lights light up on the lectern. He activates your table talker when you ask your question or answer or say anything. Your table talker picks up your voice and it comes out of all the other table talkers in the room instantly. You don't have to wait for somebody to run over with a microphone, or you don't have to get out of your chair and go over to a line at a stand-up microphone. That's how this thing works. And so it supports communication and collaboration and high intelligibility because you're so close to the speaker and microphone.
So Jeff,
They
may I
said,
ask,
"This is great."
is there a video component to this also?
Yes, there is. In the front of the room, it's designed so that there's some pan-tilt zoom robotic cameras. And since the system knows which table talker is active to hear questions from the audience, the cameras can be preset to zoom in on that table and then take that image and put it up on the big screen. or to connect that meeting to anybody who's attending by WebEx or Zoom or Google Meet or any of the other collaboration platforms, online systems. And of course, everything gets recorded. The audio, the question, the back and forth gets recorded. The image of the person asking the question can be recorded as well. So you've got great content for post-production, and you capture the essence of the meeting and the conversation dialogue that's going on between the participants.
Jeff, this is incredible. And I got to say, I doubt there's anybody in our podcast audience who hasn't sat through a trade show, a main speaker or a meeting or a conference who has seen this problem in action, right? And if people are running around with microphones trying to get to somebody at a far back table with a question, first of all, they don't know how to use the mic. They always are fumbling with the on and off switch, right?
Yeah.
It's a clunky experience.
Yeah.
And the person far away can't see who's talking, so they can't get the full immersion of what's going on. You've literally solved that problem. And it's more of a problem for the company putting on the speech or the conference than I would say it is for the hotel itself, right?
Yeah. It's the meeting planner. What kind of ROI are you getting out of your meeting, and how much engagement do you actually have? And the thing that gets me the most is when you hear somebody in between you and the lectern stands up and asks a question. You don't hear the question,
right?
But the presenter starts answering the question. You're going, what was the question? Repeat the question, please.
Yes. And the presenter tries to repeat the question, probably doesn't, repeat it correctly. That's amazing. Jeff, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no. Well, that's the dynamic of how the thing works. And so you can imagine in higher education how these directors of technology are saying, we're setting up meetings like this all the time. We have round tables, we've got stages and lecterns, and our meetings are very collaborative, and this is ideal for collaboration. I said, well, if you want, we can build you a set of these we can make more of these wired prototypes, and you can use them. We can test them in your facility. And when we do eventually come out with a wireless version, after we get the investment and we do the product development, we promise to swap you out your wired ones for the wireless ones at no additional cost.
Okay.
And what they said next floored me, because what I heard was, oh, no, we don't want wireless. What?
Wait, what?
Yeah, we prefer wired. Okay, you're going to need explain why. I want to understand. Okay, look, we're in higher education. You're in hospitality. Your meetings last a day. So you're setting up a meeting on Sunday night. You're striking it on Monday afternoon, setting up a different meeting for Tuesday, a different meeting for Wednesday. Our meetings last 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes. We hold long meetings. And we set up on Sunday night and don't have to go back in that room until Friday. If these things are wireless, we'll have to probably charge their batteries every night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so
and what if the batteries die?
Yeah.
Mid-conference.
And another thing is that, because our meetings last so long, we have to run wires all over the floor anyway, because we need to bring power strips to each table, because people need to charge their devices. And sometimes we run private network cables. So it's nothing for us to run an Ethernet cable to every table. We're happy to do that. We're running wires anyway. And because we're in technology, we know that a wired connection is going to be more reliable and more secure than a wireless connection. So we'd trust wire more than we trust wireless. There's no interference with wire. Yeah, oh man, all this makes sense. And that's true for higher education as a market that we had completely not addressed or imagined. So suddenly we come off of that show and we're doing a pivot. We're going straight into production, design and production of the wired version.
Of wired products.
Which is exactly where we are now. We have a custom circuit board that the third version of it has passed all the tests. It's great. We have phase array microphones that we're using that are superb. We've got really good speakers. So, and a control panel that uses a little mini iPad for touch panel and some push buttons and everything up for the lectern, main control for the presenter. So we're tickled. We do call our design, our prototypes, they look kind of steampunk. and design. They're
I love it.
knobby
I
and
know exactly what
flashy,
you're
and
referring to in
you know,
steampunk. Yeah,
but that's what we have now, and we're going into limited production so we can get some pilots out there, and we can also show investors and potential buyers. And we're starting industrial design next week. We're going to kick off industrial design with a firm to make it look pretty, like all of our good stuff, our technology that's now proven, and to then
sure.
put it in a consumer attractive enough box. They've won Red Dot Awards, so they're a really nice firm, and they've worked in the AV industry. So we're pretty excited
Great.
about getting that done while we're still, looking for investment. So
So
that's
wow, so a product innovation en- enabled you to not only grow through the new product sales, but grow with your existing customers. But you opened up a whole new customer channel because of this innovation.
Mhm.
That's tremendous.
And
I think the growth expectations for you are almost endless.
we're pretty excited, and we find that in pitching the seed round, which is we need just a little under $1 million to go into production for the commercial version of the wired, that we're beginning to hear from potential investors who are saying, well, what happens after that? What about the wireless? We said, well, we still need, 3 to 5 million to do the wireless. So after we get wired in the market and get traction, then we're going to roll into development of a wireless version. And they want that part also. Some of them are saying, well, we'll help you with your seed if you give us first choice when you go and do your A round. It's interesting how it's really, and so I think it's going to be a continuum. I think that it's all going to blend
Sure.
together, and a year from now we'll be enjoying the wireless product as well.
It's interesting that the investment community is looking for the wireless products, but your customers have already told you, no, we want wired. We want old fashioned.
Yeah.
But you know what? It sounds like you're going to be able to execute on both levels. So that's fantastic. That's a great story. I love product innovation stories, and it goes the same for services, right? Um, Even though it's not something tangible, a service can be innovative and solve a problem that hasn't been solved before. So I love product or service innovation stories because I truly believe that product innovation is drives sustainable growth.
Because once you start improving, you just find more ways and more ways and more ways to optimize the product. Like, for example, we have somebody who's suggested, well, you can put voice recognition into table talkers. So you can just ask
Hmm.
everyone to, yell out, how many children do you have? And then all of a sudden it'll aggregate all that information and put it up on the big screen. Here's the average number of children we have here in the room. It's just a tip of the iceberg. It's like a
Oh
platform
yeah,
for
and
innovation.
integrating AI into
Hmm.
that product will enable that even further.
And facial recognition and putting, people's picture up there with their name and their company or whatever. It's all kinds of
Oh
things. We just
man.
got to get the platform built first. Because then what we can do in the software and the digital and visual processing.
Well, Jeff, I hope that if there's any way that this Think Small podcast can help you get there, I hope we can. So, Jeff, I mean, we've kind of talked about it already, but what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for media design?
Growth. We're learning how to scale our own professional services operation. Our reputation just continues to grow as the top hospitality, audiovisual, and acoustics experience design company. Nightclubs,
Mhm.
restaurants, meeting rooms, boardrooms, conference facilities. We do other things also. We do a lot of corporate facilities as well, and the facility management world is beginning to need more and more as technology. People are getting used to having the best technology, so they need to keep up with it. But we're
Sure.
we're we're growing and scaling Electro Media, our consulting practice, and Table Talker, of course, is just very exciting.
You're at the tip of the iceberg with that product. So, what would be holding you back, or what would be stopping you from achieving your growth goals?
To be honest, understanding and being good with cash flow management. Cash is king in any business, and you can
Indeed.
outgrow your cash. You take on more work, especially the way we do. Sometimes we have to be very careful with our cash because a lot of times you don't, in our world, you don't just send an invoice and get paid 30 days later.
That's right.
Sometimes it gets aged. Sometimes we don't have any bad debt. It's a long term. And in order to manage that, you have to have good habits, good practices with cash flow. And I believe that's probably true for every business, though. Cash is king.
Excellent. Jeff, this has been a fantastic conversation. I love learning about what I'd call an old school business that's innovating and driving new product experiences for their customers and solving problems that otherwise haven't been solved yet for your customers. What a great conversation. Jeff Loether, the founder and president of Electro Media Design and Table Talker. Jeff, it's been a great chance to speak with you today. We really enjoyed you having on this Think Small podcast.
Thank you. It's been great reminiscing about the origins. So where did this come from? Yeah. Thank you
Oh,
for
great.
the opportunity.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?